It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
So what happens if you see a tornado, but it has sharks in it? What's up, guys? My name is MJ, and we're back on the Slashes and Sync podcast. Shout out to all my spooky people out there. We're going to be taking a look at a movie that is not necessarily horror, but it does have a lot of blood and gore, and that is the film. I don't even know if it's a cult classic, but the film known as Sharknado. Sharknado was directed by Anthony Ferrante, and it stars Ian Ziering as Finn Shepard, Tara Reid as April Wexler, or April Shepard. We also have the late John Hurd playing the, town drunk in George, and we have the reoccurring character for most of the franchise, and a main staple of the franchise, Cassie Serbo as Nova Clark. And in this film also stars Jason Simmons as Baz. I believe that is the best friend of Finn. What's insane to me is that Sharknado came out in 2013. So that was about 12 years ago, now that we're in the year 2025. It doesn't feel that long ago, but I guess it was. I first watched this movie on my own back in the day. I believe I watched the first few and then I got my sister into them because this was back when her and I were doing a lot of horror binging. We're just watching a lot of horror franchises and getting into movies like that. So then we eventually watched Sharknado, and we went all the way to the end, I believe, where it obviously just gets insane by the last film. And not too long ago, I want to say about like a couple months ago, I actually saw the entire franchise on sale on Apple TV for like $10. So I had to get it because that's an insane deal. So now I own the entire franchise, and I binged them, I rewatched them. Funny to say that the first one still kind of holds up. And you know how it is when you kind of go back and rewatch a movie from the beginning. A lot of the times, depending on the franchise, the first movie gets fucked over just because a lot of things get retconned and a lot of things just completely are just not the same anymore. And then that's not even just talking about recastings and stuff like that usually happen in long franchises, right? But it's the little things that this movie actually does that the later ones play up on, and I actually appreciate that. Like in this movie, you constantly hear Finn and his son Matt constantly say Semper Paratus, which means always ready. That's a nod to the US Coast Guard. And we do see in the later films when Finn's dad makes his debut into the franchise, we actually know that he is from like a military background, and just stuff like that. And then Finn also has somewhat of a military background as well. So it is very much stuff that is shown in movie one, but it gets brought up in later, and you can kind of go back and appreciate that. Obviously, when I was 12 years younger and I was watching these movies like on Sci-Fi or whatever platform at the time, you don't really think about stuff like that, especially when there's so much comedic elements and then you're watching a movie called Sharknado. Like, you're not really going to sit there and break down each individual scene or even just dialogue. So it's interesting to go back and rewatch it now, especially now that I'm in like my podcast phase. I'm watching movies, taking notes, that you can kind of catch stuff like that. And I can appreciate the writing when it comes to that. What's interesting about this film franchise too is that the first few movies are actually rated pretty high by critics, especially when you go check them out on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I don't really like to judge movies based off of Rotten Tomatoes scores, but it is always fun to check them out. And usually movies like this where they're more comedic and they're just so bad that they're good, is usually the audience that likes them more. But it is interesting to see, like, for an example, the first Sharknado have almost like an 80% critic review, whereas the audience is like in the 35%. To me, that's just kind of funny. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into 2013's Sharknado. So right away, we get this shot of the ocean. It's very dark and gloomy, and we get a huge tornado just pop up, and it starts sucking up a bunch of sharks from the ocean. And it's very like just gloomy gray, reminds me almost like of a Harry Potter style color grade. And then we get the title card, Sharknado, presented by Sci-Fi. Now I can kind of see why for a while that this movie was under the name of Dark Skies when in production, because I can kind of see that, especially in the opening here. Then we jump over to this cruise ship where there's this, I guess, money deal going on. It's these two guys who really aren't important to the story, at least as of yet. But this whole money deal is going on. There's a tornado like approaching or there's a storm, I should say, approaching the crew. And they know that it's coming, but this deal is really important here. And they're going to, worry about this more so than the storm that's coming ahead. And that's kind of the, I guess, ideology of this movie, is that we worry so much about like human problems and just, money and divorces and just all that type of stuff that we really don't take a second to prepare ourselves for what is coming. And usually Mother Nature knows how to hit fucking hard. And in this movie, yeah, money is the priority. This deal's going down. Storm is hitting. The ship is shaking. The guy who was in the suit ends up using that time using the fact that the storm is there to his benefit. He escapes with not only the money, but also, I guess, with the documents and everything that the captain needed of that ship. And he ends up finding him, and they get into a huge shootout, but not before realizing that everyone else on the ship is like gone and it's just them. And then before you know it, sharks start falling from the sky and they eat these two dudes. And that's pretty much it right there of the opening. And then we cut over to the beach. Now, we are in California. I don't know if this movie was shot in California, but it's hard for me to like really tell, honestly, even though I do live in California, because I haven't been to that many beaches. I've only been to the Newport Beach and to the Laguna Beach. I actually haven't been to Santa Monica or anything like that, so it's hard for me to know if this was really shot there. I would imagine it must have been. It was like 18 days worth of shooting, so I'm pretty sure they could have gotten that done at a beach. That probably would have been fine. I don't think it would be crazy. It's not like you're closing it down for months on end. So I'm pretty sure this is California. It is cool though too, later in the movie when they're trying to escape the storm or the Sharknado, they mention a lot of like the freeways and places to go and stuff like that. And now me living in California, because I'm originally from Texas, it's cool to kind of see the 405 mentioned, and you know what I mean, and the 5. Like, it's kind of cool to see that, like them mention how to get to Beverly Hills and certain places like that, because I recognize some of the street signs and all that. So it's pretty cool. And it pretty much looks like a normal day at the beach. We actually get this scene where we're focusing on this girl for a good minute until finally it switches over to Ian Ziering's character, Finn Shepard. And we see that he is now the main character, and we see what he's doing. He's a surfer. He surfs with his boy named Baz, and they kind of just do their thing, you know, just checking out the waves, checking out the chicks. We can kind of tell that both of them are single from this interaction. And of course, they can tell that a storm is coming. They at least seem pretty seasoned to know when something like that's going to happen. We finally make our way over to the bar, which is owned by Finn Shepard, and we see our next main character, Nova, played by Cassie Serbo, and then we also see, I guess, the town drunk, or the guy who's always at the bar hitting on chicks, played by the late John Hurd. His name is George, and they all seem to be pretty friendly with each other. Like, that seems to be kind of like a little clique there. George, Finn, Nova, and Baz. And obviously, George kind of gets a little special treatment considering that he knows them so well and he's always there at the bar. So that's pretty cool. And we get to see like this fun little interaction between him and Nova. And you can tell, even though he's being kind of a creep, Nova still respects him in some manner, I guess, because he has put a lot of money into the business for Finn. And he obviously seems like a friend of Finn's as well. And we get this funny little line from Nova where they mention that there's a storm heading and how they could possibly endanger the sharks. And she says, yeah, kill all them son of bitches. Like, she really doesn't care about sharks. She does not like them. She does not favor them. She wants them gone, extinct, etc. Then we actually see the girl from earlier in the film, which kind of focused on her for a minute. I guess she does know Finn and Baz. I guess she might either be like a regular at the bar, or she's just always at the beach, so they know each other, since that's where Finn's bar is at. And she is the first victim of what I guess is essentially a shark grabbing her, even though we don't technically see the storm yet, we do see that there are a lot of active sharks right now, and she is the first victim, and that's when Finn and Baz are able to kind of like see what's going on. They want to start getting people out of the water. The bodyguards start getting brought into that, and then there's tons of attacks everywhere. It's hard to even keep count of who got killed or who got injured, but regardless, people are just getting attacked left and right. Funny enough, still no storm yet. It's just there's a lot of sharks in the fucking ocean, at least in this part of the beach as of right now. But it could be, you know, an aftermath of the storm. Like maybe they're trying to escape it, or it's just brought them this far along. But it's not like what you would have seen in the trailer where they're falling from the sky yet. They're just strictly in the ocean. And this is where we kind of get to see Finn's, I guess, protagonist aura pop in here, because he's able to escape a lot of the shark attacks. Baz is actually someone who saves him at one point, but he gets bit, so he's, you know, yeah, somewhat expendable. But Finn is able to escape a lot of the shark attacks, and he actually saves a couple of people as well. So we get to see where this movie is headed and who the main character really is of this movie. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of Ian Ziering. Like, I liked him a lot in Beverly Hills 90210. I grew up watching that a lot because my dad watched it, you know, constant reruns, same with Seinfeld. But Beverly Hills 90210, Steve Sanders was always a fan favorite of mine. And, or, if, you know, just, I love that character a lot, I should say, probably. And seeing him here, it was cool to kind of see him have like this comeback and kind of make himself known for something else besides that. But yeah, we get to see just everybody just trying to like recuperate after this huge shark attack at the beach. And I think the beach gets closed down, and Nova finally makes her way down to help out Finn with Baz since he was attacked. The bodyguards are getting some people out. And then I think there's a little bit of a time skip. It might be like a day or two has passed, because Baz is fine. He's up. He's walking again. Change of clothes. Even Finn has a change of clothes. Even Nova's in a different outfit as well. So I'm assuming a day or two has at least passed here. And they're all at the bar talking about the storm and what happened. We get like these cool little moments from the characters. We kind of get to see the relationship with Finn and Nova, because Nova seems to be infatuated with him, but Finn doesn't want nothing to do with her, and we kind of understand why. We see kind of like where Baz is at and how he's kind of a ladies' man, and they all get along. It's like this little clique here at the bar. Then they start taking notice that the storm is going to hit shore, and it's pretty big, a lot bigger than what they expected, and Finn wants to close down. And because the storm is a lot bigger than what they expected, he actually calls his wife, April Wexler, otherwise ex-wife, and he's letting her know she's in Beverly Hills, but he's letting her know like what's happening, and she just thinks that he's calling just because, you know, hey, you want to come visit your daughter, you know, blah blah blah, like you don't have visitation rights until this weekend or whatever, like, you know, don't fucking call, etc. And honestly, I mean, after what he just went through, I can see why he would have called, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he was using that as an excuse just to get her on the phone, because he still seems to be in love with her. You can tell she's trying to move on and he hasn't. But that doesn't mean he's wrong, though, because the storm is hitting, and it's hitting hard. It's shaking everything. They pretty much need to clear everybody out. They're trying to get everybody out of the bar. Like, the whole, like, pier is just shaking because of how strong the ocean is, and that tornado, or they don't know it yet, but that Sharknado is coming. And that's when everyone decides to finally like just leave after they evacuate the bar. You have Baz, George, Nova, and Finn. They get in the car together to go, you know, not just escape this, but I think Finn has an ulterior motive of actually driving up to Beverly Hills to check up on his family. There's this funny scene too where George actually takes his favorite stool. So, yeah, he hawks the stool and then takes it up. That way, I guess, you know, he has that. So, pretty much implying that he probably never leaves that bar. We then see a scene where the pier is shaking bad. Like, the Ferris wheel looks like it's literally about to just become undone. And what do you know? It does. It starts rolling across the pier into the city. It injures some people. It finally crashes, and everything is just going all to hell, because in the midst of all of this, now you have all this rain, you have this wind, and you have a Sharknado that's approaching really fast, and they need to get the fuck out of there. So they all get in their car and they're ready to head out. And this storm actually gets so bad as while they're driving, it's already flooded most of the nearby streets to the point to where the water is already up past the windshield of the car. Like, the only reason they're even able to drive is because they're driving Finn's, like, big-ass truck. Like, that's the only reason they're able to make it out. Like, if you're, like, in an Audi or something, like, super close to the ground, like, you're covered in water, essentially. And this is where I mentioned you get, like, cool little moments that if you do live in California, and more specifically, like, LA County or even Orange County, you get little nods to some of the towns, the names, and just name of the streets and just stuff like that. And that's where they start to notice that there are sharks now in the water. Like, they are literally just swimming in the water. And they're filling them, brushed against the truck, and yeah. But you can tell Finn is, like, gung-ho on just trying to get to Beverly Hills. He wants to see his family. But at the same time, he is a shepherd, and we're gonna see that throughout this franchise. And as they're driving along, they constantly see that people are in danger, and he stops to help those people, whether it be, you know, just somebody who needs to get away from their car, maybe save a dog or two. He goes in and he does his thing to help these people. And funny enough, even though a lot of them are somewhat against it, Baz and Nova help Finn a lot. Like, they have a lot of faith and trust that they put into him, and they're willing to do what they can for their friend and with their friend. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, even George, who is like the town drunk, gets out with his stool and he goes and fights off some sharks to help this, I believe, like, little girl or dog. I can't remember which, if it was both of them in the car or not. So he does his thing too. And even though he was hesitant to do it, he still puts his life on the line. And that does cost him, though, because we see the first big wave crash from that storm, and down comes a bunch of sharks, and George does not make it. He's the first casualty out of this clique. Baz, Nova, and Finn, though, can barely mourn his death because they need to get back in the car and they need to head out of that area, and they need to go find Finn's family because he is, like, dead set on that. And that's where Nova kind of has a little breakdown about sharks, and she wants them all dead, all gone. She can't believe, like, these deaths are happening around her. And we actually get an explanation to that as why, but I'll explain that in a little bit. So now we see that they're making their way through Beverly Hills, and they're going a little bit more uphill, so they're kind of out of the water now. But it's still, there's a scene where it shows a good portion of California of where they were from, like the beach area, and it's, like, flooded. There's sharks everywhere. It does not look good. Finally, Finn makes his way to April's house, and of course, April is still dead set on, you know, you're just here to cause shit, like, take, you know, your stripper friend and Baz and get the hell out of here. But he's trying to warn them that something is coming, something is wrong. They've seen sharks, people have died. And we even see his daughter Claudia, and Claudia doesn't really seem to want much to do with him either. And then that's when we see April's, I guess, new boyfriend or husband. He comes down and kind of a dick to Finn, you know, and even April at that point tries to stick up for Finn just because of how much of a dick her, I guess, honey is being. And he lets everyone know that they're in Beverly Hills and that they're safe. Not before a shark breaks through the window and attacks the honey and kills him. So they are in fact not safe. At this point, there's a couple sharks now flying, or swimming, in the living room area. April and Claudia are just distressed and freaking out. They don't know what the hell is going on. And now Baz, Nova, and Finn are, like, killing these sharks that are pretty much swimming in their living room. And this is where we get to see, like, Nova kind of unleash a little bit of her anger and stuff, and just go out of her way to not only try and stop these sharks, but do what she can to kill them as well. Especially when she holds up that shotty and she catches a couple of lives with those sharks, man. So she's doing her thing. And we see that, again, this clique, Baz, Finn, and Nova, are pretty much the badasses of this group. And there you go. And I will say, I do like the chemistry between Finn and Nova. And it's one of those interesting things where, like, Tara Reid is a really good actress. And there is a form of, like, you can see that these two actors can portray love between these two characters, right? In Finn and April. But there is something about, I think, Cassie's performance as Nova, where her and Ian can just, they make magic when they're on screen. And it's one of those things where if they had ended up together in the future, I wouldn't have been upset about that. I actually would have been, like, pretty 50-50 with it. And more stuff happens there at the house with Baz and them trying to, like, escape and just, you know, get out of that house, because as there's a lot of water in there, more pipes are breaking, water's bursting through, the streets are flooded, there's more sharks. But they're finally able to make it back to Finn's truck, and they're able to escape. But I believe at this point now, they're going to go see if they can find their son Matt, who I believe was on military duty, or he was on military leave, but now he's back and he's taking some classes somewhere. And in this car ride, you kind of get to see the tension between not just Claudia and Finn, but also April and Finn, and also April and April and Nova, excuse me. So a lot of tension here. And then you kind of just have Baz in the background, just kind of being the jokester that he is. And that's, of course, where we see Finn's, I guess, main character aura pop up again, where they see a bus, and there's kids in that bus, and so is a chaperone. And there's sharks everywhere surrounding it, and Finn's above them on the bridge, and he needs to save them. So he goes out of his way, and this is where we get a line from April where, and not just April, but Claudia as well, where Finn is willing to put his life on the line for these people, and I guess they don't really fuck with that. And this is where it's a little hard for me, because as somebody who loves his family very dearly, if I was in this situation, I don't know if I would stop. Like, I'm 50-50 on that. But at the same time, though, I also don't have, like, the training that Finn has. I also don't have, you know what I mean? Like, they come from a military background. They come from that type of family. It just seems like, I don't know. It just feels like Finn, that's who he is, I guess. And I guess if I was in that family, I would just accept it. But, you know, then again, it's hard. You know, I'm not April. I'm not Claudia. So it is what it is. But he goes out of his way to save these people. And then everyone else kind of gets involved to make sure it's done as quickly as possible. And Finn's able to save I think the entire school bus. Yeah, he saves everyone that's in there along with the chaperone. Of course, not without some tension, as one of the lines is about to break, and there's sharks not just swimming, but now they're jumping up at him. He's basically like a pinacha, just hanging down with the sharks wanting to get some food. But yeah, ultimately, he's able to make it. Everyone's back on the bridge. Everyone is safe. And we get this scene where the storms actually increases. It's shaking the bridge. It's shaking everything. Buildings are, you know, some glasses are getting broken. And then we see the chaperone who just made it. He gets killed by the Hollywood sign because the winds were so strong that it knocks one of the letters off the Hollywood sign and it comes crashing down on the chaperone. So that sucks. But the kids were saved. Finn's okay. Everyone's back together on the bridge. And now everyone needs to, I guess, move on from this point. We even get this cool scene where there's like a shot of the city and there's like multiple tornadoes, like just small ones, just like all over the, I don't know what part of LA that would have been, but it's like just all over the city. It's insane. Now they're back on route to go find their son, Matt, the oldest son, or I should say the oldest kid of April and Finn. And we get like this montage of just seeing, you know, just different like parts of the city just completely in ruins. It's like a ghost town. Like there's just sharks flopping everywhere. There's just so much destruction. I think there's even a scene where they get attacked at one point from one of the sharks falling from the sky. It hits the car and Finn's able to fight it off and kill it, but it's a pretty tension-filled scene. They then find like a, I guess, hardware store / gas station, because that dude has literally everything there. It has weapons, food, has like the coolers with the drinks in the back and all that stuff. And we get this funny interaction where this guy doesn't believe for 1 second that this Sharknado thing is like man-made or for real, that he's a very big government conspiracy theorist, and he goes in on that. And you kind of have Finn with this comedic, you know, reactions to what this guy is saying. So it's pretty funny. I think Baz uncovers that they're right next to like a movie cars for rent building, and they go steal like this big ass Hummer that's like decked out to pretty much face the apocalypse. Like it's just insane ass ride, man, that they find. And they start making their way through the city, and again they're seeing just so much destruction, cops everywhere. I think there's even like a car chase scene because they're going so fast that a cop actually catches wind of it, so he chases them down, but Baz is able to lose them in that car. So a very interesting scene. I wasn't really expecting that when I was watching this. But they make their way to the Van Nuys Airport, which is also near a Sunny Meadows retirement home, I believe that's the name of it. And they make their way to the airport, and everyone goes inside, and that's when they find Matt and the people that he's with, some of the other military people, and you know, they feel like they're surviving this storm, but what they don't know is that this storm has sharks in it, and the sharks are coming. So much so that one of the main people that Matt was with, that I guess was kind of like the leader of the group, if you will, she gets killed and by a shark that just happened to break through that building. So there you go. So now if anyone didn't believe that there were sharks there, they believe now. Once the storm kind of breaks through a little bit and they get some sunlight, they're able to kind of get out of the, I guess, hiding spot now that the wind is gone, and they make their way to another hardware store and they steal a whole bunch of weapons, chainsaws, blades, nail guns, etc. And everyone is gearing up to fight. The main clique plus Claudia, April, Matt, and even some of the people that Matt was with. We see Claudia and Finn have this back and forth, right? Like this, kind of showing you what the tension is between them. And Finn drops this line on her because she's very much on April's side when it comes to what Finn does, like saving other people, doesn't really, love, the family. He kind of puts other people before the family, stuff like that. And then Finn drops this bar on her where he says, "Who did I come to first?" It's kind of fucked up because that kind of implies that he loves her more than Matt. But I guess at the end of the day, he's trying to tell her that, like, you do come first, essentially. And plus with Matt's, military background, I guess he probably assumed he would be okay. But, he did come for Claudia and April first. So I did kind of understand the bar, but it was kind of funny, though, the first time I heard it. And in Baz, at this point now, they're doing these, I guess, bombs, if you will. They came up with this idea to kind of like throw these things into the tornadoes and like pretty much just blow them up. And then we see Nova and Matt interact. And Matt catches wind of the scar that Nova has. Now, what's interesting about the backstory of her scar is that it is very reminiscent to the story that Quint told to Brody and them in the movie Jaws, which I thought was a nice little touch because she says that 6 people went into the water and only she was saved and the sharks took the rest. And her grandfather was a part of that 6 people. So we kind of see why she has so much hatred towards sharks and why she wants them all dead. Now that everyone has like their weapons and stuff, they make their way outside. And now the final showdown begins with people like splitting up. Finn and them go a certain way. I believe Nova and Matt go into the sky so they can drop the bombs into the tornadoes. And then I think Baz even makes his way somewhere else with the big bomb. That way, in case if their plan doesn't work, he's the backup. And he pretty much knows that he's going to have to sacrifice himself, and that's what the implication was there with his last handshake and talk with Finn. Now, a good portion of the people that Matt was with started getting picked off by the sharks. We had to have some casualties here in the final battle. Nova and Matt are able to take out a couple of the, I guess, storms, right? And they're doing pretty good for the most part. Finn and them on the ground are also getting their fair share, with Finn using a chainsaw to kill a couple of the sharks as well. But Baz does ultimately get killed, and that bomb that he had, the big one, is pretty much left alone. So that sucks. I believe the bomb that Nova drops, the third one, doesn't get the job done, so she's not able to fully get that, but she does also fall out of the plane as well, and she gets eaten by a shark, or at least what we think, she gets eaten by a shark. Now, it seems like Matt's about to crash the plane. Everyone's worried that he's going to die. There's a lot of tension there, but he ultimately is able to land it fairly okay, and then Finn runs up to him and saves him, and we get that moment there. That's when Finn goes back to the car that Baz was on, that decked out truck that has that huge ass bomb in it. Matt takes it upon himself to drive that motherfucker right into the middle of that storm, and he blows that huge storm up. And of course, a bunch of sharks start falling everywhere, and everyone starts getting their fair share of kills on the sharks. There's this moment where this huge ass shark is coming right towards Finn, and Finn jumps into the mouth straight in. Right now, everybody is freaked out. Matt, April, Claudia, but then we see that the shark starts shaking, and we see a chainsaw break through the shark. And what do you know? Not only is it Finn, but Finn pulls out Nova as well. So Finn saved Nova. And he saved her in a pretty ultimate way, man. That's kind of a crazy way to get saved. That's why I say, like, if they were to ever have ended up together, I can see why Nova's a lot younger than him, so there's that issue. But at the end of the day, like, I can see why their lives are pretty much now intertwined forever. At least with him saving her the way that she did. Like, you can't really ever forget somebody like that who went inside a fucking shark for you and, like, cut that motherfucker up from the inside out and saved you. But then we see April and Finn get back together, and we see Matt and Nova, which I don't even know if they're really a couple or if they're trying to be a couple, but either way, he comforts her after what just happened, and yeah. And then there you go. That's the end of the movie. We get this end credit with the text Finn. So yeah, pretty cool movie. I liked it a lot. I liked it on my first watch back in the day, and it was a fun movie. That's why I went and like recommended it to my sister, and you know, we had a fun time making fun of it, but also watching it, enjoying it. And even this time rewatching it now that I'm 30 years old, I even had more fun with it, and I could appreciate it for the type of movie that it was. And I'm actually happy that I own the entire franchise now, because if I ever need to kind of just let loose and not think about something, I got this fun movie to help me with that. So either way, man, yeah, Sharknado was a good time. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. Just be aware that, you know, there's a lot of special effects in this movie, and not all of them are the best. So, but it was shot in 18 days, and it had a budget of like $1 million, I believe, or $2 million, so not that much. But with what they did, it was a fun movie. And Ian Ziering as Finn Shepard is probably one of my favorite movie characters of all time. Just with the, you know, the type of person that he is and what we see him grow into throughout the franchise. Very cool character. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough. But anyways, this will probably just be a movie franchise that I talk about on my own, similar to the Slumber Party Massacre films. So this will be something that I probably cover without Marva in the future. But Marva and I will probably be back next week with Death of a Unicorn, since we did watch that in theaters. And, well, actually, it might be Sinners, because we're going to go see Sinners this week, too. So who knows what will come out next week. It could be Death of a Unicorn, or it could be Sinners. But either way, thank you guys for tuning in as always, and I will talk to y'all next time.